All right, next gen stats guru, one of my favorite coworkers of all time. We've done Amazon, and he's also helped me. She's tried to help me with my fantasy. James Coe has joined us.
What's cracking, Chris? Hey, by the way, I feel like I have definitely helped you not come in last.
Yes.
And that's the goal. That's the goal, baby.
Did you see the fruits of your labor, which was me not being on that billboard in Charlottesville? Did I ever send you that billboard that was the punishment?
No. I need to see that.
But basically, we have our fantasy draft coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
Defending champion is sitting in one of these chairs.
Is it this weekend or next weekend?
You're not even close, actually. We will be. It's more than 2 weeks away.
Okay, good. More time to prepare.
Yep.
Pre-pandemic, man. It's like, yeah, man. You get together live. I mean, you get the spread. You got the chicken. You got the the hoagies. You got them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get to crack open a couple beers, a little whiskey going too. So no, that's the best way. You get the live draft board and like stickers and all that, and like you throw them up there. You know what I mean? And just do that whole thing, man. But barring that, hey, this is my life, bro. So like anytime I can just get together with friends and even do this online, man, I'm good with it.
It's been funny. I actually didn't get fantasy football at all when I played football, but I totally get it now that I'm just a retired dad. Like it is a waypoint in the middle-aged dad calendar. It's like, hey, if we can just get to August and we can start talking about our draft, like that's going to be a tremendous amount of wind in our sails socially for the fall. And it's a built-in excuse, babe, I got to do it. It's amazing how we all leverage it like it's part of our job.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, wife, I know I spent all day watching these games and shouting expletives because of a dropped pass here or there, but I won the league, and look at this $400 we have now.
Don't tell me I'm not contributing to the household. We used to in St. Louis do a great NBA fantasy draft. I was really into basketball fantasy. Have you ever dabbled in that, James?
I used to love fantasy basketball, man. Like I had like 5-6 leagues going at one point in my life before I started getting into girls, and a girlfriend was like, "No, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it."
No, because you have to pay attention every night with fantasy basketball.
Every night. You're right. Yep.
Baseball, they're just fucking, they're deranged. I don't understand how they do that over that long of a season. Football is the perfect sweet spot. You have a draft take.
Well, and so much offense intended to you.
Thank you.
And I trust that James will agree. James, I was always a one league person just because I wanted to root for my guys and not worry if I had a guy on one team and I was going against the same guy in another league. But I've expanded to the 2-league system because we have to produce content here on this podcast. And we do a snake draft because the people in this league are by and large dumb people. And I trust that you will agree. My other league is an auction league, which
is the only way to go.
Yes, it is the only way to go. And I would try to explain it to you. I don't know if you get it.
Try me.
Okay, you have a pot of money, $200, let's say, and then you bid for players against your fellow drafters.
Oh, okay. Got it. So it's kind of like all those really bad, you have $5 to start your team, your NBA team.
It's in that vicinity.
It's in that vein.
It's adjacent. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I got no objections because but we generally don't care.
We're years away from trying that with this league.
Good. And a reminder that I didn't know the rules well into last season. So this year I know the rules.
I remember it was 62 yards. I don't remember who it was, but it was a 62-yard touchdown catch and run. And then you were flabbergasted. You were like, how is that 13.2 points?
I don't understand.
It's like, well, touchdown 62 yards, 6.2, and he caught the ball, and we're in a PPR league. So it gets to 13.2 in a hurry. And you were like, wow.
Yeah. Points per reception. I know, guys.
It's the best.
Points per reception.
Singular.
So I have a quick idea before we rifle fantasy 2021 questions at you. Why can't we make a defensive line fantasy kind of like thing with sacks, pressures, hits, like literally a separate league just for defensive linemen? You can play like a side league for certain positions. Is there any steam that we could pick up there, or is that just a dead thing that nobody's ever talked about?
No one's ever talked about a defense-only league. That'd be an interesting one. But you can do it, by the way.
Really?
I mean, yeah, because they have IDP leagues, which is individual defensive players. So, like, instead of picking like a team defense, you could pick like individual players, right? And so you could set it up actually where like you X out all the offensive players and only go with defensive guys.
I love it.
And just do just do a defensive-only fantasy league. That would be a first, though, I think.
That would be awesome because think about all the things you have to take into consideration. Okay, like, hey, the best defensive line in the league is playing, but they're playing, I don't know, Tom Brady, and Tom's going to get the ball out. You know, like there's just little, it's not as simple as, hey, I've got Von Miller playing this weekend and I'm going to pick him up. It's just like anything else. You have to triangulate how the game's going to go. And I just feel like the defensive linemen don't get enough love in the fantasy football. We probably don't want it, thinking back to how it was in the locker room when guys would be like, they're fucking sending me death threats about their fantasy leagues. Like, we don't want that. But I would love as a fan to have a defensive league.
You were a part of one of my rosters in an IDP league once upon a time.
It's just not.
Lasted a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure you cut me.
No. All right.
You go first. What do you have for James Coe?
Okay, how deep is this draft this year? Typically we talk about a top 4 or a top 7. How many guys do you think are blue chipper no doubters this year?
I mean, here's the problem for me is that I'm kind of a psychopath about this, and that like most everybody's going running back with like the first 7 picks, and I just don't feel that confident about it. You know, like, hey, I love Dalvin Cook, right? But this man has an injury history going all the way back to high school. Alvin Kamara is going to be part of an offense that right now looks like a dumpster fire, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry has 850 touches. That's no cap. 850 touches over the past 2 seasons, which is just unbelievable. Zeke Elliott again is another player who, I mean, I'm buying into the training camp hype, looking at all these videos, but I'm just saying, like, the man has a lot of mileage, right? So, man, there's a lot of guys that are going early that I'm a little bit concerned about in terms of injury or scenario. But listen, beyond that though, like, honestly, there's probably a good, like, 8 to 9 guys that you could feel extremely confident in producing this year. All those guys that I, listed as having red flags are still blue chippers, as you mentioned, Macon. And then you throw in the wide receivers like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. I think Travis Kelce sneaking up there into that positional, God mode too. So, I mean, there's 8 or 9 guys easy right off the top that you feel really confident about.
Who's the quarterback that, you might take a flyer on early and feel good about reaching for?
I think most guys are going to either take a flyer on Patrick Mahomes. Look, that revamped offensive line, he's going to have all day long. And 2, I kind of sort of like his situation in the fact that he plays in a division, I think, that's going to put up some points, right? So I think he's going to be kind of forced into a few more shootouts. And the one thing about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, man, they don't mind piling it up. They really don't. So I think Patrick Mahomes probably your safest bet going early. But, man, I tell you what, Josh Allen right on his heels.
Aaron Rodgers, as you will remember, quarterbacked the houses to a championship last year. Yeah, maybe the third mention or so.
Good for you.
Are you buying? Okay, Aaron Rodgers.
We both won. Neither of us were on the billboard.
Aaron Rodgers, Devontae. This is the last dance. I'm gonna set the league on fire, or is he on a decline because he's in most rankings? I don't know, 5 to 8 range with guys like Kyler Murray ahead of him, Dak Prescott ahead of him. What's your gut tell you on, as we refer to him on this pod, unfortunately,
Aaron Razzers,
A-Rod?
I think Aaron Rodgers is in line for a solid season. I mean, this is a man that just piled up the touchdowns last year, no doubt. But prior to last year, though, he was in decline, and I would, venture out to say there wasn't a single legitimate fantasy analyst who had him as a top 5 quarterback. There might not have been a guy who had him as a top 7 quarterback last year, honestly. So certainly he came kind of sort of out of nowhere to surprise and put in a great performance in MVP, season, obviously. But can he do it again? And that's kind of sort of the question. I don't know, man. Like, who am I to doubt Aaron Rodgers at this point? But honestly, I do know that prior to last year, he was in a decline, and that was pretty obvious. So I don't know, man. That might have been the coaching. Maybe he's now, real comfortable in the LaFleur system. I don't know, man. It's really difficult to say.
I think you're in a good spot because, like, you should doubt him because if you're right, you're right. And if you're wrong and he mentions you, that would be pretty fucking cool to hear that Aaron Rodgers was motivated by James Coe. So I say fire away.
All right, fuck it, man. Rodgers, bottom 10 quarterback in fantasy.
Okay,
Let's do
you heard it here. Burn the ships. Saquon Barkley. Right, sitting right here in my notes. Okay, like superstar. Right. It's going to be, you're a Giants fan. It's going to be provocative to pick him up and all that. But like, we were talking about running backs earlier. Does he concern you? What's his ceiling?
Well, I think what really concerns me is the fact that they're not giving us very much positive news in a time period, Chris, where football players always give you a lot of positive news. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like, this is best shape of my life season, bro. Like, and all of a sudden Saquon's talking about, well, let's take it easy. I don't know if I'm going to be ready for week 1. The coaching staff is far from glowing in terms of the reports regarding Saquon's health. So that's what makes me concerned. And we have seen his, ADP drop, his stock drop from like the 2nd overall pick all the way down to like 10, 12, right? So there is certainly a discount right now with Saquon Barkley. If he ends up being healthy, if he ends up being healthy for like 14 games, let's say he misses 3, but he's good for 14, that's still a hell of a bargain that you're getting him at the 10 to 12 spot.
Antonio Gibson, that's somebody I'm really excited about.
Is that right?
Well, I want to give you my big board away.
Yeah, another house member from last year.
The way you just looked, you kind of panicked because you think maybe I'm infringing on your turf. But I wonder how high people are going to reach for him.
Man, Chris, you have been playing some decent fantasy football if you're talking about Antonio Gibson and you're hyping him up because, my God, man, like the fantasy football inside community, like we love Antonio Gibson. He's a pass catcher. You guys play PPR. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick there, again, man, like that offense is going to be off and running. Like I love the addition of Curtis Samuel too, but for me, give me Antonio Gibson all day long. I think that offense is going to move. I think the defense in that division is trash, basically. And look, Washington, man, they're gonna pile up the points, and I love a running back in a good offense, and that's what Antonio Gibson is.
What about the annoying running backs by committees? The San Francisco,
like who's gonna be
the New Englands? Are you buying into any individuals with that setup?
All of it. Like, give me all of the guys in San Francisco. The Shanahan run system is the best in the league. And McVay's probably a close second, but after that, there's a big drop off. You know what I mean? Like, I get Stefanski's doing his thing in Cleveland, but those two guys are incredibly talented. Like, give me Nick Chubb in a Shanahan system. That dude's putting up 2,000 yards. You know what I'm talking about? And Shanahan's system to me is the best in the NFL. So Trey Sermon, Raheem Mostert, I don't care who you go with. Hell, in redraft, you can go with both, baby. Like, let's go. Like, I'm all in on Kyle Shanahan's system. And then you talk about New England. I think Damian Harris is a special player.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah. And there's going to be certain games when Bill Belichick mixes it up and Damian Harris isn't going to be as big as part of the game plan as we would like. But man, if Cam Newton is the starter, this is going to be a run-heavy system. Hell, even if he's not a starter, we're talking about a rookie quarterback. It's going to be a run-heavy system anyways, So, and Damian Harris is a talented player. So for me, I like Damian Harris. Not as much in PPR, obviously, because his pass-catching work is going to be somewhat limited with the specter of James White looming. But, I mean, I don't know, man. Give me Damian Harris. Give me the talent. Give me Bill Belichick. And let's go.
Speaking of that, Deion Lewis just retired. Specter of our short running backs in New England catching swing passes. I had to mention that. Right. But like Damian Harris is going to be helped because, I mean, like no matter what, New England has uncharacteristically had to play such a lack of complementary football because of the way, Cam's health or whatever it was last year. They couldn't get the intermediate passing game going. They couldn't really get the deep ball going with any consistency. Even if they're a run-first offense, having some stability, whether it's from an improved Cam or a Mac Jones who looked really good. We just got done, putting him in the Hall of Fame earlier. Like that's what everybody's doing this weekend. It's going to be better for Damian Harris. How about Julio Jones? You were talking about Julio Jones earlier. You said that he's way low, but same player? Is that the big conundrum for you if you're looking at him on your big board?
Well, I agree about the drop-off, in part because of injury concerns, and then you have more competition in Tennessee. But Calvin Ridley's up there in top 5, 6, 7 of a lot of lists, and maybe that's the answer to the question. He's not dealing with Julio, and Julio's dealing with more talent in Tennessee. But it seems like the drop-off has been precipitous.
That was the word.
For Julio.
Yes, that's the word.
This year, are you buy or sell on Julio Jones this year?
I think with where Julio is going, I'm a buy. You know, I don't think there has been. I don't think there's much of a drop off, honestly. Look, I do a lot of work with my buddy Matt Harmon, and we talk about a lot of wide receivers. He's got this metric called success rate, and he measures every single route, right? But he also measures what kind of coverage. And success rate versus man, Julio Jones is still right there. He's still one of the best in the league. You know what I mean? Like he's still in the 80th percentile of players all time in terms of success rate versus man. So his drop off is slight, but we're talking about like God mode to now just an extremely good player.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the competition for targets with A.J. Brown there in Tennessee is real. And it's not a super high volume passing attack. But man, I tell you what, play action with what y'all going to do defenses against the Tennessee offense, bro? Like you got Derrick Henry on the ground. You got Ryan Tannehill. He's got some wheels and he can sling it. You got one guy. I mean, you got Shaq and Alonzo out there on the wide receiver edges. You know what I'm saying? Like who are you going to guard, bro? Like, I don't know. Like, what are safeties going to do? You're going to go single high safety look against Julio and A.J. Brown? Good luck.
Nope.
Like, I don't know how you're going to do it, man. So, in terms of opportunity, I don't think he's going to see like 150, 160 targets like he had seen in Atlanta. But hell, even with like 120 targets, because honestly, who else is there? It's A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Those guys are going to see like 85% of the targets. You know what I mean? 120 targets for Julio Jones in single coverage. Good night. Like, sign me up for that all day long.
And they lost Davis down there, so
Corey Davis.
They're gonna have a lot of footballs coming their way. And yeah, you asked how miserable it would to be. Like if I had to show up and like get zapped into a uniform today and play defensive line, that might be a bottom 3 offense that I want to play because they can hurt you in a million ways. And not to mention that quarterback is relatively athletic, but. Yeah, it's going to be fun watching Tennessee this year. How about an overdraft? Who do you think is going to be the guy that is the biggest, I hate the word bust, but it's fantasy. So who's the biggest bust this year that you see coming a mile away?
Man, you know what's funny, Chris? Like there's been a movement among fantasy analysts to kind of get away from, first of all, like fantasy owners, like we're trying to transition down to fantasy managers. And then the other one too, it's like, not saying bust, but like who's going to be a disappointment?
That's so interesting. You guys are trying to make that move. I get the owner thing, the bust thing. Yeah. No, I mean, we don't take it personally at all. I never, of course, had the football or was on anybody's fantasy team except for Macon's. But so who's going to be the biggest disappointment this year?
You know what, man? I am not really feeling Dalvin Cook this year, and I think. For me, it's mostly the injuries. I think he's a fabulous player. Obviously, when this dude gets to the outside, he's magic, you know? But there's been some turnover there, you know, in the coaching staff, obviously. And you would imagine they're going to run the same system. You know, it's Gary Kubiak's kid that's now running it over there in Minnesota. But so it's going to be a lot of the same concepts, outside zone. And when Dalvin Cook gets outside, like I said, he's electric, you know? But I think the injury concerns is a real thing for Dalvin. You know, he's had shoulder issues. He's had lower body ailments. And again, just an injury history going all the way back to high school. Now, last year he stayed relatively healthy, but man, I'll tell you what, I'll play the numbers. And I think Dalvin might be a little bit more banged up this year. And again, I'm not totally in love with the coaching staff either. So yeah, he's one player that I'm kind of sort of looking at. I think Joe Mixon is another one. Like this is a guy that's going in the late second round, and Mixon. It's funny, man. There's a lot of Joe Mixon truthers out there, you know? There have been people that have told me that Joe Mixon is the best running back in the NFL. If he could just get this, and if he could just get that, Joe Mixon would set the world on fire. And I'm like, guys, how many years has it been? You know? Like, when this dude first came into the league, he was being outplayed by Gio Bernard. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, I'm just out. You know, I think Cincinnati's O-line, probably one of the 5 worst in the NFL. Joe Mixon, you know, again, is the talent level there? It certainly could be. He just hasn't shown it, you know? And so how many years do we have to keep doing this before we say, hey, listen, he's probably a good player, probably not a great player. We're probably overdrafting him here in the second round.
He ain't Nick Chubb. And listen, Joe Mixon is a really good player. And I think I appreciate people looking out for people in bad markets on bad teams, but I mean, Joe Mixon is not the best running back in the NFL.
The tight end position, if Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle are off the board, who do you like most at that position where it can it can swing leagues?
Yeah, it really can. And honestly, if you're not getting one of those top 3 guys, you probably just wait. You know, really? I think Kyle Pitts is in a league of his own.
Don't write that down. Don't write that down. Don't take notes.
No problem.
Kyle Pitts is like in a tier of his own. You know, it's like the big 3, Kelsey, Waller, Kittle. And then Pitts is like his own like tier, you know, because you know he's going to get looks, but he's a rookie. So, and it's a slow developing position, the tight end position is in the NFL, but he's a fantastic pass catcher. We already know this. He's super athletic. And now with Julio Jones gone, what else are we really looking at in terms of target competition, right? Like not much. Not much. So I would imagine Kyle Pitts is probably going to see, you know, north of 100 targets, maybe close to 120 targets, which would just be astronomical for a rookie tight end. But if we're not going there, golly, man, I would probably wait. Like Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, these guys scare me a little bit. Dallas Goedert, I'm not in love with.
I'd put him as a sleeper, knowing nothing about fantasy football.
Well, Dallas Goedert, yeah. Listen, we would love to be all in on Dallas Goedert, but like my dude Zach Ertz still is there.
I know.
I mean, and he's still getting looks.
Carson's not there anymore, so I feel like his looks go down, especially considering he's going to be. It's a contract year for him, and I don't think they made any indication that they want to keep him around. So I feel like maybe in my simpleton NFL player brain, outside of like a fantasy scope, I'm thinking maybe he gets a lot of targets, because if you ask people up there, and Zach Ertz is an awesome player, Dallas Goedert's just as good at this stage in his career, and Jalen Hurts and him might have some real chemistry. That's a question that's going to be answered this year. So same thing. I'm looking at Jonnu Smith, who, I'm biased. I love Jonnu Smith as a football player. Up there, a security blanket. They like the tight ends up there. It's been some years since they've had tight ends that you could depend on. Maybe they just OD on Jonnu Smith. How far off would I be on Jonnu?
The problem with Jonnu, and I love Jonnu for that system, and I love him for that team. The only problem is what's up with Hunter Henry? Like, is this guy going to play? Is he going to be the pass catching option? Is Bill going to kind of divvy up those tight end targets like he does with running backs, where if they're ahead, you know they're going to get Damian Harris. If they're behind, you know you're going to get James White. Is it the same situation where if they're ahead, you're going to see a lot of Jonnu Smith, and if they're behind, you're going to see a lot more Hunter Henry, who's a move tight end? Like,
that's an interesting question. I mean, it's one that I've struggled with thinking about how they play these two guys, just as you laid out. I just know that one of them has had, in Hunter Henry, some injury issues in the past.
That's true.
And I'm thinking to myself, that's a physical place to play football. There will be days when Hunter's dinged. And I think that Bill, if I had to guess, is going to fall in love with both of them. But Jonnu Smith is going to be right up his alley, and was really good in the red zone. Really good in the red zone. So, it's like a total gamble. You don't know, but the upside could be huge. The downside could be, it's boom or disappointment.
You guys take a back seat. Great game I've just developed. 3 names. Pick one, James. PPR, Chris Carson, Miles Sanders, or Josh Jacobs?
Oh, Chris Carson by a mile. I think I have loved Chris Carson since day one. Superior athlete, unbelievable. I mean, like, we're talking video game terms. Like, his truck stick is unbelievable, bro. Come on, you know.
Is nice. His truck stick is nice,
dude. His truck stick is nice, boy. So no, and let me tell you, like, Seattle's offense, sign me up for that. Like, this is the thing with fantasy football, guys, when we're talking about the running back position. You want running backs in good offenses, period. Like, you know what I mean? Like, talking about a guy who's going to get a lot of volume in a bad offense, I'm over it, Like, give me a guy. I don't know how many touches Chris Carson's going to get, but like, let's say he gets like 15 a night in that Seattle offense. Like, yeah, give me that. Give me all of that. You know what I mean? So, and again, I think fabulous athlete. He's a better pass catcher than advertised too. And his only thing is, can he stay healthy? He's got to stay healthy.
Chris Carson of Biloxi, Mississippi.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Hello.
Hello. We just shouted those guys out last pod. Miles Sanders, I love him to death, but what you said is true. We don't know if it's a bad offense or not. I would take the back in the well-oiled machine. Is that a one-round game?
It's a two-round game.
2 rounds, and then we'll let James go.
Okay. Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett.
This one's a tough one. It really is. We're talking about 3 secondary options. Oh, wow. That one's tough.
Great secondary options, too.
Great. I mean, yeah, fantastic secondary options. And actually, the funny thing is you pick 3 guys who play primarily in the slot, which is really interesting to me. Because normally, if you gave me 3 guys and 1 guy, I'm stalling here, but if you gave me 1 guy who's like an X receiver, maybe I lean towards the X.
Yeah.
But since these guys all play primarily in the slot, you know what, man? I will go with the good. I will go with Chris Godwin. I think the chemistry in the offseason can be built a little bit better this year between Godwin and Tom Brady.
Yep.
And even though Antonio Brown is coming back and is going to be in the mix and is certainly going to garner a lot of targets, we have seen before that Tom Brady has at times favored a guy in the slot, and he's never played with a guy as good in the slot as Chris Godwin. Never. And so I think there might be a little bit of an upside move there with Chris Godwin this year.
That's interesting. And Adam Thielen comes in third for you, kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, probably there, I don't
want to put him in a plexiglass box or anything, but he is a slot guy.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to kick him outside too a little bit, and I don't think it worked that great. But his major problem, and again, this is according to my guy Matt Harmon and his reception perception research, but just he hasn't been great against man coverage, and he's been really bad against press coverage too, right? So when you try to kick him outside, it doesn't work as well. He's great against zone. But not really a man beater. And for me, like Tyler Lockett, he's got like some kind of weird mind meld with Russ, right? So give me that upside all day long. I know he's disappointed, on a week-to-week basis, but overall season-long numbers, he's been fantastic. Give me Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, close 1-2, and then Adam Thielen a third.
The legendary James Coe, one of my faves. James, where can we catch you this fall?
You can catch all my stuff on Twitter, and actually I'm trying to build up my YouTube page a little bit too, but it's all whatever it is, social media handle /James D. Coe, and you can find me there, man.
We got a James Coe YouTube coming, Next Gen Stats, whiz, love me some James Coe. James, come back again when I'm in first place mid-season, and we can I'll gloat a little bit.
No doubt, baby, let's do it.
All right, dude, thanks
you. Thanks, James.